Parallel and perpendicular lines. Today I am learning the slope criteria for parallel and perpendicular lines so that I can determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, and write the equation of a line parallel or perpendicular to a given line that goes through a given point. I will know that I have it when I score an 80% or above on my check for understanding. Parallel lines are lines that lie in the same plane but never intersect. Parallel lines have the same slope but different y-intercepts. So if we take a look at these lines here, let's find the slope of both of these lines to prove that they're parallel. So I see a point here and I see a point here. We're going to rise 1, 2, 3, and we're going to run 2. So the slope of this line is 3 over 2. Now looking at this line, I see a point here and here. We're going to rise 1, 2, 3, and go to the right 1, 2. So the slope of this line is also 3 over 2. Because both of these lines have the same slope, they are considered parallel lines. Okay, perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form right angles, and right angle. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocal. Now, that may sound complicated, it's not. When I say opposite, I mean opposite sign. And when I say reciprocal, you're always going to think flip the fraction. So let's look at 5, for example. The opposite of 5 is, so that's where you think the opposite sign, okay? So the opposite of 5 is -5. And then the reciprocal of 5, so this is where you think flip the fraction. So we know the whole number 5 would be the fraction 5 over 1. So when you think of flipping 5 over 1, that would become 1 over 5. So now we're going to put it all together. Therefore, the opposite reciprocal of 5 is -1 over 5. So let's take a look at the two lines here and prove that they are perpendicular. So I see a point here and I see a point here. So we are rising 1, 2, 3, 4. And we go to the right running 1, 2. So that would be the fraction 4 over 2, which simplifies to be 2. So let's think about this. If these lines are going to be perpendicular, what does the other line's slope need to be? So if the slope of this line is a +2, the opposite reciprocal of a +2 is a negative, remember, opposite sign, and now flip the fraction 1 over 2. So that should be a -1/2. So let's take a look at this line. We already have one point here, and I see another point here. Now to get to this point, we're going to go down 1 and then to the right 2. So that would be a -1 over a +2. And that is the opposite reciprocal. The opposite reciprocal of 2 is a -1/2. Example 1, are lines A and B parallel? So the first step is to find the slope of each line, of course using rise over run. So let's go ahead and find the slope of this line first. So we go up 1, 2, 3, and we go right 2. So what is the slope of that line? 3 over 2. Now for this line, we would go up 1, 2, 3, and we would go right 2. The slope of this line is 3 over 2. Now you'll simply compare the slope of the lines. So each line has a slope of 3 over 2. So the lines are parallel. Remember, parallel lines have the same slope. So because both of these lines have the same slope, which is 3 over 2, the lines are parallel. Example 2, our lines R and S perpendicular. So now we're given equations. So the first thing that we'll have to do is actually put each equation in slope-intercept form, and then we'll be able to identify the slope. So let's start with line R. We have 4y plus 12 equals x. Remember, putting it in slope-intercept form means solving for y. So in order to solve for y, we'll first subtract 12 on both sides. We're left with 4y equals x minus 12. And now we will divide 4 on, divide each term by 4. And we're left with y equals 1 over 4x minus 3. Okay, so that's line R. Now let's look at line S. 8y plus 2x equals 16. So we'll subtract 2x on both sides. 8y equals negative 2x plus 16. Now we'll divide each term by 8. So y equals, this fraction would be negative 2 over 8, but we need to simplify that. We can divide both of these numbers by 2. So that will become a negative 1 over 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that would be negative 1/4 x. And now 16 divided by 8 is 2. So this is line S. So let's look at our slopes. The slope for line R, I'm supposed to do that down here. Okay, so looking at our slopes, the slope for line R is 1/4. And the slope for line S is negative 1/4. In order for two lines to be perpendicular, the slopes must be opposite reciprocal. So the slopes are opposite, they have opposite signs, but they are not reciprocals. This fraction is not flipped. So are lines R and S perpendicular? No, lines R and S are not perpendicular. Oh, running out of room. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Line P represents the following equation. So we're going to find the line of N, which is a line that is parallel to P and that passes through 0.62. So the first thing we need to do is rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. So 2y plus 2 equals 6x. We're solving for y, so we'll subtract 2 on both sides. 2y equals 6x minus 2. And now we're going to divide each term by 2. So y equals 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3x minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. So here's the equation that we are working with. To find the equation of line N, we know that parallel lines have the same slope. Therefore, we can substitute the slope 3 into the equation for line N and get y equals 3x plus b, okay? Because at this point, all we know is the slope, which is 3. Next, we'll use the ordered pair given to solve for the y-intercept, which is, of course, b. So let's go ahead and do that. So looking at our ordered pair, we know that the 6 is our x and the 2 is our y. So let's substitute that into this equation. So that would be 6 equals 3 times 6. Oh, excuse me, let me start over. Our y is 2, so that would be 2 equals 3 times 6 plus b. So 3 times 6 is 18 plus b. Subtract 18 on both sides. That would be negative 16 equals b. So now we can finally write the equation of the line that is parallel to the given line. It would be y equals 3x and our y-intercept minus 16. Example 4, we're given the exact same equation and the exact same point, but this time we want to find line Q, which is the line that's perpendicular. So again, we have to rewrite this equation. Since we've already rewritten it on the last example, I'm just going to go ahead and write down what we got, which is 3x minus 1. Now, to find the equation of line Q, we know that perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. And the opposite reciprocal of 3, because look, our slope is 3. The opposite reciprocal of 3 is a negative 1 over 3. Therefore, we can substitute negative 1 over 3 into the equation for line Q, and we would get y equals negative 1 over 3x plus b. Now we're going to do the same thing that we did and use our ordered pair to solve for the y-intercept. So again, we know that x is 6 and y is 2. So y, which is 2, equals negative 1/3 times x, which is 6, plus b. So 2 equals, now if this troubles you in any way, don't let it, use your calculator, but it's very simple to multiply a fraction and a whole number. Simply take the numerator multiplied by the whole number and then divide the denominator. So 6 times negative 1 is negative 6, divided by 3 is negative 2. Now we'll add 2 to both sides, and b equals 4. So the equation of the line that is perpendicular to the given line is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4.